If you master these principles, nothing, no person, no situation, no pressure will ever disturb your peace again.
Right now, as you listen to these words, I want you to pause for just a moment and ask yourself a question that could change everything about how you experience life. When was the last time you felt truly, genuinely at peace? Not just the absence of chaos, not just a quiet moment between storms, but that deep, unshakable sense of inner calm that makes you feel like you could handle anything the world throws at you. If you're struggling to remember such a moment, you're not alone. Most people live their entire lives never discovering the secret to maintaining inner peace, constantly at the mercy of external circumstances, riding an emotional roller coaster that never seems to end. But what if I told you that there's a way to develop such unshakable inner peace that nothing, and I mean nothing, can disturb it? What if I told you that regardless of what happens around you, regardless of the chaos in the world, the demands of your career, the challenges in your relationships, or the uncertainty of the future, you could maintain a center of calm that remains untouched?
When your identity is secure, opinions lose their power.
This isn't some mystical concept or wishful thinking. This is a practical reality that you can create in your life starting today. The truth is, most people have it completely backwards when it comes to finding peace. They think peace comes from having the perfect circumstances, the right amount of money, the ideal relationship, the perfect job, or the absence of problems. They're waiting for the external world to align before they can feel at peace internally. This is like waiting for the ocean to become still before you learn to swim. That's never going to happen. And while you're waiting, you're missing out on the profound joy and freedom that comes from being truly centered within yourself. The revolutionary insight I'm going to share with you today is that peace is not something you find, it's something you create. It's not dependent on what happens to you, but on how you relate to what happens to you. The most peaceful people in the world aren't those with the easiest lives. They're those who have learned to maintain their center, regardless of what life brings their way.
Peace comes when you stop fighting reality.
The first principle that will transform your relationship with inner peace is understanding that your peace is not up for negotiation. Most people treat their peace like it's something optional, something they can afford to lose when things get tough. They give away their peace to anyone and anything that demands it. Someone cuts them off in traffic and they hand over their peace. They get criticism at work and they surrender their calm. They see disturbing news and they let it shatter their serenity. But here's what I've discovered through years of studying human behavior and working with thousands of people. Your peace is your most valuable possession. And like any valuable possession, it requires protection. You wouldn't leave your front door wide open and then wonder why strangers are walking through your house. Yet most people leave the door to their peace wide open and then wonder why every external circumstance walks in and disturbs their tranquility. When you make the decision that your peace is non-negotiable, everything changes. You stop being a victim of circumstances and start being the guardian of your inner world. This doesn't mean you become cold or disconnected from life. It means you become selective about what you allow to affect your inner state. You develop what I call emotional sovereignty. The ability to choose your response to any situation rather than being controlled by it. Now, the second principle involves recognizing that your thoughts are not your reality. They're simply mental events that come and go like clouds in the sky. One of the biggest misconceptions people have is that they are their thoughts. That every thought that pops into their mind is somehow meaningful and true. This belief alone creates more internal chaos than almost anything else.
When your identity is secure, opinions lose their power.
Your mind is like a radio that's constantly scanning different stations. Sometimes it picks up worry, sometimes anger, sometimes fear, sometimes excitement. Most people think they have to listen to whatever station their mind happens to tune into. But the truth is, you have far more control over your mental radio than you realize. You can learn to observe your thoughts without being consumed by them. to notice them without letting them dictate your emotional state. When you understand that thoughts are temporary visitors in your consciousness, not permanent residents, you stop taking them so seriously. That anxious thought about the future is just a thought, not a prediction. That angry thought about someone who wronged you is just a thought, not a command to stay upset. That worried thought about your finances is just a thought, not a reflection of your actual capabilities or future outcomes. And this doesn't mean you ignore important thoughts or stop thinking critically. It means you develop the wisdom to distinguish between thoughts that serve you and thoughts that simply create noise in your mental space.
People who misunderstand you are not your assignment.
You become the conductor of your mental orchestra rather than being at the mercy of whatever instrument happens to be playing the loudest. The third principle is learning to find your center in the present moment, rather than losing yourself in the stories of the past or the fantasies of the future. Peace exists only in the present moment, yet most people spend their time everywhere except the present. They're either rehashing past events, worrying about future possibilities, or creating elaborate mental scenarios about things that may never happen. Your mind has an incredible ability to take you on journeys through time, but here's what most people don't realize. When you're not present, you're not really living. You're existing in a mental simulation that often has very little to do with what's actually happening right now. And in that simulation, peace is impossible because you're constantly trying to solve problems that don't actually exist in this moment. The present moment is your only point of power. It's the only place where you can actually influence your life, make decisions, or take action.
People who misunderstand you are not your assignment.
It's also the only place where peace naturally resides. When you're fully present, fully here, fully engaged with what's actually happening, rather than what you think about what's happening, you tap into a natural calm that's always available to you. Learning to anchor yourself in the present doesn't mean you stop planning for the future or learning from the past. It means you do these things from a place of presence rather than from a place of anxiety or regret. You plan from wisdom, not worry. You learn from experience, not from endless mental replay. You make decisions from clarity, not from fear. The fourth principle involves developing what I call responsibility, the ability to choose your response to any situation. Most people live in a reactive state, automatically responding to whatever happens around them, like a pinball being bounced around by external forces. Someone criticizes them and they automatically become defensive. Someone treats them poorly and they automatically become upset. They see bad news and they automatically become anxious. But between every stimulus and your response, there's a space. And in that space lies your freedom. The size of that space determines the quality of your life.
Too many voices create confusion in the soul.
When that space is small, you're reactive, and your peace is constantly at the mercy of external circumstances. When that space is large, you have the freedom to choose responses that align with your values and support your inner peace. Developing responsibility is like building a muscle. At first, you might only catch yourself after you've already reacted automatically. That's perfect. That's exactly where everyone starts. The awareness that you reacted automatically is actually the beginning of developing the ability to respond consciously. Over time, you'll catch yourself in the middle of an automatic reaction and be able to shift. Eventually, you'll develop the ability to pause before reacting and choose a response that serves you better.
Everyone doesn't deserve access to your emotions.
This principle alone can transform every area of your life. In relationships, instead of automatically becoming defensive when criticized, you can choose to listen and learn. At work, instead of automatically becoming stressed when faced with a challenge, you can choose to see as an opportunity to grow. In daily life, instead of automatically becoming frustrated when things don't go according to plan, you can choose to adapt and find new possibilities. The fifth principle is understanding that your inner peace is not dependent on other people's behavior, opinions, or approval. This is one of the hardest principles for most people to accept because we've been conditioned to believe that how others treat us determines how we should feel about ourselves.
When your identity is secure, opinions lose their power.
We give other people enormous power over our inner state without even realizing we're doing it. When you base your peace on other people's behavior, you're essentially handing over the remote control to your emotional life to anyone and everyone around you. That person who's having a bad day and takes it out on you now controls your mood. That colleague who doesn't appreciate your work now self-worth. That family member who's critical now controls your confidence. You become like a leaf in the wind, blown around by every change in the social weather.
Too many voices create confusion in the soul.
True inner peace comes from developing an internal locus of evaluation. This means you develop your own internal compass for determining your worth, your happiness, and your peace. You stop outsourcing these crucial aspects of your life to other people's opinions and start taking full responsibility for your inner world. This doesn't mean you become arrogant or stop caring about others. It means you stop making other people responsible for your emotional well-being. You can still value feedback, appreciate kindness, and enjoy good relationships, but you do these things from a place of wholeness rather than from a place of need. You interact with others as a complete person who wants to share joy rather than as an incomplete person seeking validation.
If this message is blessing you, stay with me. Principle number 10 is what separates the peaceful from the broken.
The sixth principle involves learning to embrace uncertainty rather than fighting against it. Most people's lack of inner peace comes from their desperate attempt to control and predict everything in their lives. They want to know exactly what's going to happen, exactly how things will turn out, and exactly what to expect. When life doesn't provide these guarantees, which it never does, they become anxious and lose their center. But here's a truth that can set you free. Uncertainty is not the enemy of peace. It's actually the space where all possibilities exist. When you're trying to control every outcome, you're actually limiting yourself to only the outcomes you can imagine. But life is far more creative and abundant than your imagination.
A man on assignment is rarely disturbed.
Some of the best things that have happened to you probably came from directions you never expected. Learning to be comfortable with uncertainty is like learning to dance with life rather than wrestling with it. When you're dancing, you don't need to know every step in advance. You respond to the music. You move with your partner. You allow the dance to unfold naturally. When you're wrestling, you're trying to force life into submission. And the harder you try to control everything, the more exhausted and frustrated you become. Embracing uncertainty doesn't mean being passive or failing to plan. It means holding your plans lightly, being open to new information, and maintaining flexibility when circumstances change. It means doing your best to influence outcomes while accepting that you can't control everything. It means finding peace in your ability to handle whatever comes, rather than finding peace in trying to prevent anything challenging from coming.
Silence protects your future.
The seventh principle is developing the ability to find meaning and purpose in every experience, including the difficult ones. Most people divide their experiences into good and bad, welcome and unwelcome, pleasant and unpleasant. They try to maximize the good experiences and minimize the bad ones. While this is natural, it also creates a constant internal war against half of life.
Too many voices create confusion in the soul.
Every experience, even the challenging ones, contains wisdom and opportunities for growth. The difficult experiences often teach you the most about your own strength, resilience, and capacity to overcome obstacles. They show you capabilities you didn't know you had and develop character traits that can only be forged in the fire of adversity. When you can find meaning in every experience, you stop being at war with parts of your life. You develop what I call universal acceptance. Not resignation or passivity, but the ability to work with whatever life brings rather than wasting energy fighting against what's already happened. You can still prefer certain experiences over others. You can still work to create positive changes, but you do these things from a place of empowerment rather than from a place of resistance. This principle transforms your relationship with failure, disappointment, and setbacks Instead of seeing these as evidence that something's wrong with your life, you see them as information about what's not working and opportunities to adjust your approach. Instead of letting them destroy your peace, you let them deepen your wisdom and strengthen your resilience.
If this message is blessing you, stay with me. Principle number 10 is what separates the peaceful from the broken.
The eighth principle involves learning to trust the process of life rather than demanding that everything happen according to your timeline and preferences. Most people create suffering for themselves by having very specific ideas about how and when things should unfold. They want their career to progress at a certain pace, their relationships to develop in particular ways, and their personal growth to follow a predictable path. That life has its own intelligence, its own timing, and its own way of bringing experiences that serve your highest growth. Sometimes what looks like a delay is actually perfect timing. Sometimes what feels like a detour is actually a shortcut to something better than what you originally had in mind. Sometimes what seems like a setback is actually a setup for something extraordinary. Trusting the process doesn't mean being passive or giving up on your goals. It means pursuing your dreams while staying open to how they might unfold. It means working diligently while allowing space for life to surprise you. It means having preferences without becoming attached to having things happen exactly as you envisioned them.
Peace comes when you stop fighting reality.
When you trust the process, you stop creating unnecessary stress about timing. You stop making yourself miserable because things aren't happening fast enough or in the way you expected. You maintain your inner peace by focusing on what you can control, your effort and attitude, while letting go of what you can't control, the exact timeline and manner in which results appear.
People who misunderstand you are not your assignment.
The ninth principle is understanding that your inner peace is strengthened through practice, not perfected through avoidance. Many people think that maintaining inner peace means avoiding anything that might disturb it. They try to create a life free from conflict, challenge, or discomfort. But this approach actually weakens your capacity for peace rather than strengthening it. Your ability to maintain inner peace is like a muscle that grows stronger through appropriate challenge. If you avoid all difficult situations, you never develop the strength to handle them when they inevitably arise. If you only practice maintaining your center when everything is going well, you lose that center the moment life becomes demanding. True inner peace is not the peace of avoidance, it's the peace of engagement. It's the ability to remain centered while fully participating in life, including the messy, unpredictable, challenging parts of life. It's the peace that comes from knowing you can handle whatever comes your way, not from trying to ensure that nothing challenging ever comes your way. This means actively seeking opportunities to practice maintaining your peace under pressure. It means staying calm during disagreements, maintaining your center during stressful periods at work, and keeping your emotional balance when dealing with difficult people.
When your identity is secure, opinions lose their power.
Each time you successfully maintain your peace in a challenging situation, you're not just handling that particular situation, you're building your capacity to handle all future situations. The 10th principle involves recognizing that inner peace is not a destination you arrive at, but a way of traveling through life. Many people think of peace as something they'll achieve once they've solved all their problems, reached all their goals, or figured everything out. They're always seeking peace in some future moment when conditions are perfect. But peace is not a place you get to, it's a way of being wherever you are. It's not the absence of storms, it's your ability to find calm in the center of any storm. It's not the end of challenges, it's your capacity to meet challenges from a centered place. It's not the achievement of all your desires, it's the cultivation of contentment.
Myles Munroe emphasized that peace is not the absence of problems, but the mastery of self. These principles are not emotional tricks, they are laws of life.
Regardless of what you have or don't have. And when you understand that peace is a practice rather than a destination, you stop postponing your peace until some future moment. You start cultivating it now, in whatever circumstances you're currently facing. You realize that if you can't find peace in this moment, with things as they are, You probably won't find it in any future moment because there will always be new challenges and imperfections to focus on. This shift in understanding changes everything about how you approach your life. Instead of working frantically to create the perfect conditions for peace, you start working intelligently to develop your capacity for peace, regardless of conditions. Instead of waiting for peace to find you, you start actively creating peace within yourself. As you begin to integrate these 10 principles into your daily life, you'll notice profound changes, not just in how you feel, but in how you show up in the world. When you're not constantly disturbed by external circumstances, you have access to deeper levels of creativity, wisdom, and compassion. When you're not spending all your energy managing emotional reactivity, you have tremendous resources available for creating, contributing, and connecting with others in meaningful ways. People around you will notice the change too.
If you master these principles, nothing, no person, no situation, no pressure will ever disturb your peace again.
There's something unmistakably powerful about a person who maintains their center regardless of what's happening around them. They become a source of calm and stability for others. They're able to think clearly under pressure, make decisions from wisdom rather than fear, and respond to challenges with creativity rather than reactivity.
Thank you for watching. If this message blessed you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs it.